always pop the car into low range. So your revs are much lower and you can move slowly and steadily without causing them any undue stress. If they give you the sign that they're not comfortable with your presence, then don't approach and leave immediately. I only see two, but I think they're part of a larger herd. There we go. Hello, little one. I'm not sure which little breeding herd this is. We'll have a closer look. A little female next to us here, munching on a grivia or a raisin bush. Definitely look to be a little bit more sprightly than they were yesterday, enjoying this cool weather. So we're going to stay here, see if there's a bigger herd around. But while we're watching this elephant from the vehicle, let's go have a look at an elephant on foot.
Okay, everybody, we've just come across a musk bull elephant. He was the one that was there. There he is. He was the one drinking at the Djuma dam pan, I think. He is in full must. So we're not going to approach him any more closely than we have here. We kind of stumbled upon him and he swung around and shook his head at us because, well, we just weren't aware enough of where he was. And then we backed off a bit, checked the wind, and the wind is fine. But we're not going to approach him any more closely than we are now. We're probably about 50 meters from him, 150 feet or so. You can just see those magnificent tusks moving through the bush there. Hello, Mike Tyson, you want to know what we do? Okay, he's now looking for our scent, so we're actually going to back off a bit. Come, Brian, come over here. We're going to just move away. So, Mike Tyson, your question is a good one at this particular stage. You want to know what we do if he tried to attack us. Well, before it gets to that stage, of course, before there's any kind of engagement, we're going to move away. So the wind is blowing from the right to left of your screen. And what that means is that he can't smell us, but he will be trying to get our scent. So he's walking around the wind. And there are other elephants just through there. There's a whole herd going through there. And as we suspected, he's in must. And so he will be trying to find that herd of elephants and see if there's an estrus female. It's too thick in here to be trying to get a better view of him at this stage. So I think we're just going to keep slowly walking through here, making sure that we stay upwind of him. So we'll just quickly try and get another, well, we'll see if we can get a view through here. And it's interesting, you know, I think that elephants have got eyesight probably as good as ours, but he turned around and he walked into the wind to try and sort of get around and smell of us, even though he could see us, which I think is very interesting. All right, well, while we're walking through here, I'm not sure if we're going to get another view. Let's go back to Brent and catch up with him. We'll see what's going on here and we'll keep you posted.
So unfortunately those ellies moved into some quite thick bush, but I've got an interesting little thing to show you guys here. If you're wondering how to age elephants. This doesn't really work for bulls, but for cows and breeding herds just based on the side. So A is an adult female, B is a sub-adult, like the one we were looking at shortly, probably around 15 years old, C an intermediate, about 6 years old, D, about 2 years old, and E, an infant about a year old. So elephants, when they're about a year old, are still able to fit under the mom's belly, but after they get to a year, they are unable to. There's a nice little diagram to show you, see, how to age elephants, more or less. Of course, it's not an exact science, without climbing into the elephant's mouth and observing its teeth. But Jitlo on YouTube is telling me now, we've been chatting about national animals, birds, flowers, etc., that Scotland's national animal is the unicorn. And it apparently is not a joke. So, wow, you learn something new every day. I know Scotland's national flower is the thistle. And I suppose if you've got such a thorny national flower, you've got to hope for a unicorn, I suppose.
Now what is Ireland? The leprechaun?
Ireland's national animal, I'm not sure. I know their national plant would be the four-leaf clover. So now, Vildy would like to know whether Ireland's national animal is the leprechaun. So Ireland's quite a fascinating thing. There's not that much indigenous wildlife. There are no snakes. And there's the story that someone chased all the snakes out of Ireland, but I think it's because it's an island and they never got there. So carrying on the national and flowers and provincial flowers and that. Iggy saying their flower is a white trillium, which is also protected, but very nice to see in early spring. Well, where we are now in Mpumalanga's national flower, provincial flower is a thing called a Barberton daisy, which only grows around Barberton, which is a town to the south and east of us. My home province, which is the best province, Via might disagree with me, is KwaZulu-Natal, and our flower is a Strelitzia, or wild banana.
It's the Tsotsi province.
It's a Tsotsi province. VM says KwaZulu-Natal is a Tsotsi province. For those of you not sure what a Tsotsi is a Zulu word for a gangster, pretty much. And I think the only Tsotsi around is VM. Oh, hello, little hinged tortoise. Here we go, we have a Speaks hinged tortoise. And it looks like it's got a very strange indentation. I think, oh dear, I think he's narrowly escaped mauling by a hyena or a ground hornbill. And you can see dragging the back left foot. And his carapace has managed to save him. As you can see, he's going to move. I was going to go have a closer look, but shame. I'm sure he's had quite a rough night. That looks like a very fresh injury. And there's quite a few different animals that might have been able to do that. The two most common culprits are actually probably lion and hyena. But they don't normally stop. I think he's escaped from a bird like a ground hornbill that's tried to break open his shell with its powerful beak. But shame, we're not going to stay too long. He's obviously had a rough night. And it's quite likely we might see a few more tortoise moving around in this cool weather. After that, even that slight little bit of drizzle we've been having and had earlier, there'll be lovely moisture on the grass that they'll be able to drink, so they'll be out feeding in force, trying to build up enough reserves for the cold winter months. I asked you about what countries cheetah occur in outside of Africa. And Struan, Jared and Arsi say India, which would have been correct up until about, I think it's 100 years ago or so, but they are now currently extinct in India. Well done to Safari, Dean and Donna. So there's a very amazing population of cheetah in Iran. And in the desert there, they've managed to somehow survive all this time. And the thing about cheetah, with them being semi-nomadic, they do pop up in strange places. So it is possible all the countries surrounding Iran might randomly get a cheetah, a dispersal cheetah at some point. But at the moment, they are only in Iran, outside of Africa. So well done, and a big thank you to Marianne in Boston, who's taken it to the next level. I also asked where was the largest meta population of cheetah, the one that holds the most genetic diversity and potential for the species. And often people will assume it's the Masai Mara or the Serengeti or Namibia or Botswana, but it is actually the Greater Kruger National Park. The area we're in at the moment holds the largest number of cheetah in Africa. So absolutely fascinating. If you have a look, Marianne has, I think, tweeted some of that information. The only population outside, no, so she emailed it, but I'll just get Nikki to read it through to me again. So Kruger, the Greater Kruger, or the South Africa's got about 4,000 and some change. Yeah, 4,190, and then the rest of the population, and that's Botswana, Namibia, Mozambique, Zambia, etc., is about 3,090. The Serengeti and Masai Mara are actually relatively small, about 400, 460 odd, and then Iran between 60 and 100. Yeah, 446, yeah. So very interesting. Everyone immediately assumes the wide open plains with Serengeti and Masai Mara will hold the most cheetah. But throughout most of their range, cheetah live in mixed woodland like we're driving through right now. And here comes, I apologize for the spots that are going to appear on the lens shortly. Can feel a bit more.
Cheetah spots.
See, VM is now goading me, mocking me. Says, you mean the cheetah spots? I'm hoping, VM, I'm hoping. Will the leopard be okay, though? VM doesn't even want to see a leopard. He only wants cheetah this morning, so we're going to try and produce that for you. While we do that, let's jump on foot with James.
So we moved away from that elephant who was trying to get upwind of us and smell us. It was quite amazing to see. We did smell him. We moved further up the wind from him, and he smelt, well, nothing that smells quite like green penis syndrome, which is of course what elephants get when they are in must. I am continually whispering because there are more elephants over here, and we're going to climb up onto this ridge and just see if we can get a view of another elephant coming through this drainage system. Thick bush, so it's nice for the elephants. There's stuff for them to eat in here. But again, we're not going to go blundering through here trying to get a view. If there isn't an obvious one from here, I can hear him here. In fact, you can just see the bushes. You can just see the bushes shaking there. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. Oh, there's another one right here. Hello, Juliet in Wyoming. You want to know if animals are put off by the scent of soap and powder and Brian's delightful aftershave. Juliet? I'm not sure that they're put off by it. They're put off by human scent, absolutely. They don't like our smell. I think it's more a scent of our pheromones. I don't think it's the soap. I don't think it's the kind of aftershave and our cosmetics. Although those will obviously be very unfamiliar to them. But certainly they pick up our human scent through amazing other scents. So if you park a Land Rover, which smells basically of petrol, especially if you're driving jigger, it smells of oil and petrol and brake fluid and grease and grime. But if the wind changes and you're viewing elephants and the wind suddenly blows from behind you, they will pick up your human scent through all the stink of that mechanical engine and the exhaust smoke and all of that, and they will react to that immediately. So I don't think that our soap and cosmetics make a big difference. I'm just listening to another herd of elephants calling in the distance, a youngster going, "Wah!" Otherwise it's all peace, but everywhere we turn there is an elephant. And it's so funny, some days you have days like that where you cannot move 20 or 30 meters without seeing an elephant. We're not going to approach that elephant any closer. What we're going to do is head up the drainage line. The tracks of the lions did cross down in here, and I think the rest of that herd and possibly that musk bull is coming this way too. So we're going to just head further north up the drainage line towards the Djuma Dam and see if we don't pick up further tracks of the lions. Now Donna, you're in Rhode Island, and while we extract ourselves from this situation, you want to know about bees and whether or not we've seen them on bushwalk. Yes, I've seen plenty of bees on bushwalk, Donna. We have never seen, I've actually seen a swarm of bees on bushwalk. I've never been set upon by a swarm of bees though, and I think there is a bit of a misconception around the world that African bees are particularly dangerous, and I think it comes from the conception of African killer bees, which are a hybridized bee, as far as I remember, that was introduced to the United States or Europe, I think United States, and they weren't particularly friendly bees. But no, I've never been set upon by bees here. Brian, you've been set upon by bees?
One sting here and there.
One sting here and there, says Brian. Also listening carefully, I can hear oxpeckers calling all over us. There were some other through here, this below country, walking with great care and slowness, but it's just one to walk in some green, relatively landscape compared with what we're normally in. Sorry about the signal, everyone. We are quite low down and we might have to go across to Brent, but we'll keep you posted. The idea now is that we try and find those lion tracks. Tammy, you want to see a golden orbweb spider. Tammy, I'd love to find you one, but I've seen one this year, and I don't think that little spattering of rain that we had last night is going to do anything to encourage the golden orbweb spiders, I'm afraid. So I'll certainly stop if we find one, but if we don't, I apologize in advance. Let's just stop and answer this question. We have 4-year-old Ella in Minneapolis. Ella, you're still awake. You want to know if we get rabbits in Africa. Ella, we do get rabbits in Africa, but not around here. We get something similar called a hare, and your mum or dad can tell you the difference between a rabbit and a hare, but we don't get rabbits. We get rabbits in the Cape, but hares look very similar to rabbits, but they're not active during the daytime, of course. They're active at night, and that's when we might be lucky enough to see what we call a scrub hare. Thank you, Ella. What a lovely little question. Heather, you're in Canada, and Brent was talking to you about national flowers and that sort of thing, and you want to know if we would see more flowers in the absence of the drought. Definitely. Now, this would be a swathe of, well, I mean, look, it wouldn't be a swathe of colour. It wouldn't look like the tulip gardens of Paris, for example, but it would certainly be dotted with bits of morning glories and probably the odd gardenia and lots of other kinds of small flowers, small subtle flowers. But at the moment, no. The drought has put pay to that. We don't ever get the national flower here, which I'm sure Brent told you. The king protea does not occur in this area. Beautiful flower that it is. Nor does the galjoen, actually, the national fish. I haven't seen many of them around these parts. Have you seen one, Brian? Just listening here. Now, Siberia Zumi, you are wondering whether elephants will communicate our presence to each other. So if we were walking along and we saw an elephant, bull, would it, or a cow, would they rumble and alert the others to our presence? Siberia, I think, way of saying there are people over there, watch out. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's beyond the realms of possibility, but absolutely they will have a rumble alarm of that makes them all look up and look in a particular direction. Good question. So the lion tracks down through here, I haven't seen them again, and of course if you look at the ground here, it's not, I mean, if you've got a soft pad, for example, I weigh, what do I weigh, Brian? I weigh about 70 kilograms, about 160 pounds, and a lioness is about 120 kilograms, almost double my mass. But I'm not leaving any sign as I walk, no obvious sign. And a lion, little soft pads, I don't think it's going to, she will leave a sign, and to a highly experienced tracker, they may be able to spot some tracks here, but it's going to be very difficult on the top of the crust of the rain to find any tracks. Look at this little pan here. So this would be an ideal spot for elephants to come and throw mud on themselves, to come and lie when there's a bit of rain around. But in a drought like this, of course, there's no water here at all. Let's just try and pick out some of this clay. I might wedge it out. Right, we're back. Sorry about that, everybody. Froze there, Brian. You didn't freeze, did you? No, no. Retrieve. Thing about clay, of course. I mean, this may bore the tears out of you, but I think it's quite interesting. Clay like this, you can see it's cracked up here. Clay is full of minerals, and a lot of those minerals and various kinds of compounds are ionic, which means that they hold a charge in the same way that, well, like an iron holds charge. It's difficult to say, to make it more simple than that. But what that means is that when they are wet, all of those minerals go into solution, which means they mix in the water in the same way that if you mix salt in water, you get a splitting up of the sodium and chlorine that make up the salt, and you get sodium ions and chlorine ions, or chloride ions. And if I'm not mistaken, same thing happens in clay like this. And when the water comes in, that all goes into solution. And then when the water disappears again, those ions are reattracted towards each other. And what that does is to create this contraction of the clay. And when they go out of, so when then it rains again, they go into solution and they start to repel each other out, in the same way that two magnets might repel each other. And that's why the clay, you get these example of why you get these cracked clay areas. So for those of you who are chemically minded, that's why that happens. For those who are not, wake up again, and we'll continue going along here and see if we can find some lion tracks. Right, okay, let's quickly, a wonderful comment from Insomniac here, who says Ella's mother or father, aged 4, are probably panicking because they might not know the difference between a rabbit and a hare. Ella, you're 4, of course. The difference, the main difference is, of course, is that a rabbit has very small front legs, and you can see what you would call a bunny, and they like to hop. A hare can run, they don't hop like rabbits do. Rabbits live in holes and hares live outside on the top of the ground. Main basic differences. Let's head across to Brent, see what he's doing, and I'm going to continue up onto the road over here.
Hello, we are searching and searching. Unfortunately, we haven't even found the glimmer of a track. So James had the last lion tracks in this block off here, so I'm just going to do a wider loop around the same block. Maybe they changed direction slightly and came towards Tree House. Kyle McSitters would like to know, would a bird alarm at a cheetah? Most definitely. They would alarm it the same way they alarm at a lion or a leopard. Not that we've heard many bird alarm calls today. It's a baby duiker, maybe it won't run. It's a really tiny little duiker. Just a few months old. Hello, little one. And look how those very, oh, look at that little jump. I don't know if you guys managed to see, he's sniffing towards us, but just underneath its eyes, you've got very distinct preorbital glands, although its head is obviously firmly behind the knob thorn. There we go, you can actually see that little slit if he turns his head again. The preorbital gland used for scent marking. Oh, it's a tiny little guy. Very, very cute. Now, we are starting to get much better duiker sightings, and it's due to the drought. We're being able to see further, and they don't have as much cover to hide in. Hey, little one. Now, very interesting, duiker is one of the only antelopes that has been recorded hunting ground birds and eating ground nesting birds like francolin. There have been a few cases of this duiker, the grey duiker, doing it. Now, your forest duikers up in Central Africa do it with some regularity. Definitely one of the best sightings we've had of a little duiker. So, a little baby duiker is one of the smallest animals we're ever going to see out here. And James has managed to find something even smaller.
Now, small this is, but it is the largest, apparently, ant that we get here, well, one of the largest, and it has a rather interesting name. I'm reliably informed by the Stefan Winterboer, and so should you be offended by his name, please take it up with him. This is called a ball-biting ant. So named, I assume, because of the effect it has on the male anatomy while sitting having a picnic, precisely as I am doing now. I'm being very careful what crawls up the inside of my shorts, because if you look at the mandibles on this fellow, they are quite vicious, and you would not want them clamping onto any of your nether regions. Indeed, any of your regions. Isn't he amazing? I've been trying for ages to try and get him to sit on a stick. He didn't like the stick that Brent gave me, but he likes this stick. Half tempted to let him crawl onto my hand and see how painful he could possibly be, but my heart rate is going up now. I'm getting very nervous indeed as he moves towards my flesh. I don't think he likes the smell of me. Thankfully, he decided he didn't like the smell of me, and he's now moving back down the stick. He's deeply confused as to how he's become a flying ant suddenly. And you can see his feelers bobbing about the place, trying to figure out what on earth's going on. Those will be picking up pheromones every so often. He'll keep cleaning them, and tasting them and seeing what's on the end of them. But he'll be picking up subtle vibrations that we don't even understand, with those very sensitive feelers that he has there. And it was quite interesting that Nikki is just saying that he looks like a cross between a wasp and an ant. And interestingly, they belong to the same order. They both belong to the order Hymenoptera. So it's not unusual that you would find that they look similar in some ways. Now, an order is a very broad taxa or taxon, which means, I mean, there are millions of species of different things that fit into the order Hymenoptera. There are ants, bees, wasps, but that's why he looks quite similar. Ooh, I'm getting very nervous now. There he goes, onto the ground. Right. That is the ball-biting ant, everyone. Let's link back across to Brent while I live and allow my heart rate to return to normal, as everything is intact as it should be. Back to Brent.
So guys, we're following a spotted hyena. You can see if it pops out into this gap here. Here we go. And I think it's just on patrol, seeing what might be about. They cover vast, vast distances. Let's try and sneak forward again. I've lost sight of it. VM, do you still have sight? Where are you? Oh, there it is. It's changing direction, heading off into the drainage. But no excitement, which would lead me to believe it was on the trail of the lion or the leopard. And these lions have done a very mysterious disappearing act. So it's still no tracks anywhere. I know. And unfortunately, the leopard that's out and about, Scott said he heard her catch a duiker in an inaccessible area. We might go have a little check around, see if maybe lying up outside of the inaccessible area a bit later. But I'm quite astounded that we haven't seen any nice fresh lion tracks this morning, because they definitely haven't left Djuma, so they're still here somewhere. So speaking of leopards, Derek's wondering what's the latest update on Shadow. Has anyone seen her? Does she have cubs? As far as I'm aware, I don't know if she's got cubs yet. I have seen her tracks a few times. I know Scott's also had her tracks up around the area of Sydney's Dam and One Eye Pan. But I think the last person to see her was Jamie, and from my understanding, it didn't look like she was suckling just yet, but it did look like she was quite heavy in the belly. So it is possible. And Shadow, when she has cubs, becomes incredibly sneaky, and she's sneaky at the best of times, but she moves into an area. She traditionally has her cubs in an area where it's impossible to get a vehicle. So no one has actually had a really good sighting of her in a few days, even from the other guides. Okay. Vim, we've checked weather lines, Vim. No, we've been there. We didn't check all up. I think they're over there. I think they're between the Mawati River System and Buffelshoek Dam. And that's just purely from the process of elimination. We haven't had tracks anywhere else, and it's the only place we haven't been this morning. So, good morning, Dr. Mac. Dr. Mac is wondering if a Kapi or bongo are possible to find here. Dr. Mac, I wish. Bongo and a Kapi are rainforest species. A Kapi is a very specialized rainforest species. It's the only relative to the giraffe, and it lives between the River Cross and the River Congo, right in the center of the Congo Basin, in one of the most impenetrable forests in the world. There's no easy access to get to where the Okapi lives in the same area as the bonobo and the Congo peacock, also very difficult animals to see in the wild. Bongo is a lot more widely spread from the Aberdares mountain range in Kenya all the way through to the west, but again, still very much a forest species. This is the largest of the sort of true Traphalagians or Traphalagus species. An eland is also a Traphalagan, but it's a Toro tragus, not a Traphalagus. And bongo, unfortunately, do not occur anywhere near us. The closest bongo to us is probably living in the Democratic Republic of Congo, maybe northern Angola. Pigs. 2 male warthog. That's quite unusual to see. There's big tusks on the front guy. It's unusual to see 2 male warthog together, both adults. And normally they're in direct competition for breeding, but the rut hasn't really started, so maybe that's why they are playing the safety in numbers game. And we were chatting a few safaris ago about the warthogs. Male warthog have 2 very different sort of breeding strategies. The one is the rover, who moves from area to area chasing ladies, and the other is the stayer, who will defend a certain area, either a certain group of females or multiple groups of females, or a water source or food resource. And judging from these 2, they must be rovers. Decided to make a temporary alliance to try and make sure they don't get eaten by lions. You see those massive tusks. Very, very impressive set of tusks on that boy. And the oxpeckers have found them as well. Now, I'm going to show you a picture here quickly of a warthog skull. And those big, massive tusks on top are actually not the ones that they do a lot of damage with. These bottom tusks, called tushes, rub up against the top tusk and become sharpened. And they're literally as sharp as a razor blade. And those are actually what they use mainly to defend themselves. And you can see those are modified canines. So we'll let the bachelor boys carry on moving through into the bush, and I'm hoping to see at least one lion track on this sunrise safari. Morning, Eric, in Virginia Beach. Eric would like to know the classification of this biome. Eric heard me mention mixed woodland earlier, and he'd like to know, is it savanna, is it temperate grassland, or is it a sub-biome called mixed woodland? It is a part of the savanna biome, and the savanna biome is a very wide and diverse biome, but it is a savanna biome dominated by mixed broad-leaved woodland, if we want to be specific. And the broad-leaved woodland is mostly made up of different combretum or bush willow species interspersed with the odd acacia, marula, and of course quite a few other things. But those are probably the three most dominant families that are represented in this type of savanna. Now, there's lots of different types of savanna. Not too far away from us, we have Now, when you see small breeding herds of buffalo or female buffaloes in little groups like this, it means they have generally had a tough night and they've been harassed by Africa's largest cat during the evening. They're looking a little bit nervous, but the lions are not here unless they are sneaking up on them and we can't see them yet. It doesn't look like it. They are a little bit nervous, but not too nervous. I'm trying to think now. Should we change our route, Vim?
Remember what happened last time when we had the...
Yes, that is correct. We will keep going straight then. We will not change our route. Vim, why don't you tell us what happened last time?
Watched the buffalo for half an hour.
Yes.
And then we left, and then the lions pitched up.
It was very sad. VM and I were sitting on cheetah cutline with a small little herd all corralled together, and we heard lions and we thought the lions were in that area, and we spent half an hour, 45 minutes sitting next to a sleeping buffalo, and we were like, okay, let's move on, and we carried on, and about 45 minutes, an hour later, Ephraim comes on the radio and says, I've just found the lions, they've just killed a baby buffalo. And it was from the exact herd we'd been sitting with. So I'm not sure if VM wants me to stay and watch those buffalo for the rest of the drive, but hopefully we do get a little bit of luck. I haven't seen any tracks yet, but let's see how Master Henry is going on Shanks pony.
We are not in a good area here. We've come across where the lions were yesterday, and they've
relieved themselves liberally all around this area. It smells like the bowels of Satan himself. This is exactly where the lion pride was last night. And what is interesting, so we've done kind of a big loop. I don't want to show you any more of that. It's absolutely foul. Basically, quarantine clearings are up off to the right-hand side there, or to your left-hand side, my right. And they went onto the clearings during the night, turned around, came back down, and the road where the Wahlberg's nest is just over there, and this is where they were lying earlier in the day. So they knocked about here for a substantial period yesterday evening, and then they walked back away. Now, we didn't come here to see they were here because we knew they wouldn't be here. What we came along here for was we found some leopard tracks coming out here, probably from Karula yesterday when she was walking about here. So we just thought we'd follow them up towards the camp. We're nowhere near where she could have a den site, if she still has a den site. So we just thought we'd follow the tracks and see what we could find. Haven't come up with anything at this stage though, but the stink of these lion dungs, as it were, is just quite unspeakable. Hosts, then it is the story that we all know of, kind of gentle progression or change over time in order to adapt to an environment. A major part of any environment is the existence of parasites in an area. Now, we were talking about ticks, and we were talking about ants. Ants, of course, are very seldom parasitic, in fact, if ever, I don't think, but certainly ticks are parasites, and they deliver disease. They in turn deliver parasitoids into other animals, and those animals will have developed the resistance or the ability to try and resist the parasites that they or inject. In terms of wasps and things like that, so I mean, parasitic wasp, I guess, could be considered something like a spider hunting wasp or a caterpillar hunting wasp or mud wasp, which will catch something, paralyze it, lay its eggs within the body of that animal, and then put them in a mud cocoon or something like that, or in a hole in the case of a parasitic spider hunting wasp. Now, what's interesting about that, as we walk along here, just looking for tracks and listening to the oxpeckers, getting quite close to the Djuma Dam pan, where there may or may not be some beefaloes about. The interesting thing about that is that it is an evolutionary arms race. So at the moment, the race is being completely dominated in the terms of the spider hunting wasp by the wasps. But because they're not having enough of an effect on the population to make spiders disappear, there's obviously some kind of balance, which means the spiders, despite the fact that we can't see what's going on, definitely will have some form of resistance, even if it's something as simple as being difficult to find for the spiders. As soon as the balance shifts, and as soon as perhaps the wasps become totally dominant over the spiders, well then of course the wasp numbers must drop, and they have to invent another strategy or die out as a species entirely. So it's not a simple thing to talk about, especially not when we're on the bushwalk. But that's the basic idea, Genevieve. I hope that kind of answers your question. Now, Catherine, you're in Texas, and you reckon that you've read that ants can help to control a tick population. I don't know of any particularly tick-hungry ants. I know that ants are often voracious predators. We're going to go up onto the dam wall, and then we can look down the drainage and just see if we can't spot something there. I don't know if they're particularly voracious predators of ticks out here. I don't think that they are. I don't know of any, but there are hundreds of species of ants out here. Some of them may well specialize in eating ticks. I'm not sure what their effects on our tick population would be, though. But that's an interesting question. Thank you. So apparently the hippopotamus is in the Djuma Dam pan, so we won't be approaching him very closely, but we might be able to get a small view of him from up here. Ah. Now, Papas, you have been trying to think about coming on an African safari for a long time. You can see the mystic boer behind me. It's not so mystic at the moment. And Papas, you've been discouraged from coming on an African safari because you've heard that they're not very personal, that it's all just become a great big tourist trap, that you drive along in a line to view animals, and that it's not actually a very wilderness experience. Papas, there are places you can go that are exactly like that. They are few and far between, mercifully. There are hundreds, literally, of lodges around here, around the Timbavati, the Manyeleti, north of us, into East Africa, Botswana, Mozambique, Namibia, where you will have a pristine, private, beautiful experience out here, where you will not see another vehicle, where you will not see another person. You can go on a walking safari just like we're doing now and have this intimate wilderness experience that we're enjoying. Please don't be discouraged by the thought that everywhere you go is going to be filled with zebra striped minibuses where you'll have to share a sighting with 50 other cars. There are lots and lots and lots of places where that is not the case. So puppers, if you come out here, you might also be lucky enough to see a blue waxbill. You see them there, Brian? They're just knocking about on the floor underneath that tree there. We so seldom see them nicely on camera. And we often get requests for them, but we so seldom see them nicely on camera. Yeah, he's just moving there. Can you see him there? They're very difficult. Yeah, there's some in the bush there. You can hear them going bzz, 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 bzz. They're very common to abundant residents, that is how they're described. But common to abundant, of course, is one thing. Being able to film them is entirely another. Now, I was rather hoping I might see the duiker that Karula killed yesterday, draped from a tree, with her sitting at a safe distance in the tree from us, but that has not been the case. So Brian reckons that she probably would have just eaten and moved on, and I think that's probably quite a good postulation. Also saw lots of hyena tracks going through the drainage line, so I don't think that if she left it on the ground, there certainly wouldn't be anything left. Anyway, have a look down here. If we come over here, Brian, you might be able to get the blue waxbills here. Now, Martin Machick, you are asking a query that is often forefront of many minds. You just look around here, you might get them, Brian. I know they're flying all over the place. While Brian is trying his level best to get a picture of these very darty finches, there's one on the ground. Martin, you want to know about snakes and what is the most dangerous snake we get here, A, and B, how many do we get? Martin, we get lots of species of snakes. I'd say probably around 25 to 30 species of snake in this area, if you were to count everything that was possibly seen. In terms of the most dangerous, well, again, I know I say this, I bang on about it a lot, but until I stop hearing people refer to animals as dangerous, I will keep doing it. No snake is inherently dangerous. Lots of snakes can be potentially dangerous. Okay? No snake will, and the reason I say that is because by saying something is dangerous, the immediate inference is that they will try and actually actively seek out to bite you and do you harm. They will not. All snakes here will move away if they can. Given half a chance, no snake will choose to engage with a human being. They will normally move away. That said, if you threaten a snake, and especially for perhaps a black mamba, which is extremely venomous, if you corner a black mamba, well, then you're likely to get bitten 3 or 4 times and be dead within half an hour. But the chances of actually cornering a black mamba are very small, and most of the people who've ever been killed by black mambas have either been trying to beat them to death with a broomstick or snake themselves. So please don't come out here, don't think that you can't come out here, because there are a terrifying plethora of dangerous snakes looking to try and bite you. There's another bird in there. Oh, Brian, it's a grey-headed sparrow. Very exciting. I'm very pleased that Brian's managed to show you the blue waxbill. Now, we're sitting on the dam wall here, and I heard the approach of some elephants. They were making some noise, and I wonder if they won't come and have a drink at the Djuma Dam pan. This, of course, would be the ideal position to be viewing them from. But what we might do is go across to the other side and see what we can see from there. Wonderful, wonderful settling of the morning, from the expectation of the dawn to what we have now, where there's just a feeling of the world breathing out. There we can see the nice waxbill. Well done, Brian. Brian, of course, is now squatting, which means pain in his thighs will be reaching fever point at the moment. How's it feeling there, Brian?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. The deep burn. Very nice. Well done. So if you see the camera start shaking, that's why. It's not because Brian is, in need of his morning coffee or anything like that. It's because lactic acid is building. Oh, look, 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 look. There's some, yeah. See? Did you get them, right? They're on the bush behind there. A yellow-fronted canary, everybody. We had our first really good sighting of one yesterday from the vehicle with Brian. Well done, Brian. Brian's the yellow-fronted canary champion, of course. Now, they will often feed in mixed groups with waxbills. You can see the same kind of beak. They're seed eaters, just like all of the other finches. This is robin calling here. There's a woodpecker tapping. There's some elephants rumbling in the distance. There's a still gentle smell of petrichor coming off the earth after the rain. That's very pleasant sitting here for me. For Brian, it's deeply unpleasant because, of course, he's crouched in a particularly uncomfortable position. Right, okay, Brian, you can stand up now if you want. Maybe you can't. Brian might be stuck, everybody. Oh! There we go. He's okay. Okay, so you're now looking at the dam camera. You're watching us on the dam wall there. You can see the Mystic Boer investigating various different kinds of tracks down in the bottom of the dam there. Wave, Steph. You're on the Djuma dam cam at the moment. Ooh. And this is, of course, half the reason we bring Steph on the drives. He's found a mantis of some sort. Ooh, this is fascinating. Brian, are you going to make it down here? Those great tractor tyre boots of yours. Oh no.
Biggest leaf on the left hand side.
Oh, that is amazing. I think maybe this side, Brian. This is an incredible spot. Oh wow. Now, we were talking about, before we get in close, we were talking about an evolutionary arms race going on here. This mantis that we're going to show you, if you look at the flowers on this plant, you can see that this mantis, which is a predator, has evolved to be disguised almost exactly as one of the buds on this plant, which means it's probably entirely host specific. Look at this absolutely magnificent mantis. And while we do that, Jen B, thank you very much for complimenting Brian's, yes, very oh my goodness. Sorry you lost us briefly there. Look at that thing. Isn't that incredible? Perfectly camouflaged, and it would normally sit, I imagine, just next to the bud of the flower, and then when some insect came along to try and pollinate the flower, attracted by the beautiful yellow colors of these subtle yellow flowers, so the mantis will then leap upon it and devour it. Alright, what we're going to do, everybody, is reboot the camera. While we're doing that, just because the picture is breaking up a bit, while we do that, you'll be looking at probably the dam camera. Stand by. Yes. Okay. Here we go. So sorry about the dam camera moved off us for a second. The Zoomy obviously got sick and tired of us. That's okay. I get sick and tired of us sometimes myself. Anyway, there is the magnificent mantis here. The picture, I think, is a bit better. Now, what you need to notice is that his colors are an exact kind of representation of those buds. So while he doesn't look like a flower, he does look like the buds from which the flowers come. And Steph said before I kicked a stone onto this plant, there was a wasp sitting here, also probably waiting to prey on something. But there was also a mapani fly, or mapani bee, which is a very small bee that comes and will take out the nectar from a little flower like this. And the plant species is called WildEarthTV, and I suspect quite strongly that this mantis will be unable to survive in the absence of the Waltheria plant, because I think, I might be wrong, there might be a few species they can live on. I think that he is perfectly evolved to look precisely like this particular flower. You can imagine him on another plant perhaps not looking nearly as obvious. And look, his eyes are watching my finger now, and watch how his feelers come up. Isn't that unbelievable? And now I might induce him to attack me. Box. Box. No. It's probably a she as well. Might be a she or a he. Mantises, of course, devour their husbands. She looks like a bit of a Jezebel to me. And of course, like I say, it's not easy for him to maintain these positions, because there's the wasp. No, don't worry about the wasp, Brian. The wasp is going to be a new level even from the red, yellow-fronted canary. I mean, isn't that amazing? I mean, yeah, what else can you say? So a mantis, of course, is a predator, like I say. They will be waiting for the Mopani bees to come along. It'll grab them with those spiked front legs there, stick them in her mouth, devour them, and then sit beautifully huddled along here. And just before we go across to Brent, what I want to show you is just some silky build-up there on the surface of the leaf there, Brian. And I wonder if that isn't the beginnings of an ootheca or an egg sac that a mantis like this might make. Okay, let's go across to Brent, see what he's got to tell you about. We'll move around this general area and catch up with you just now.
So I am confuzzed, absolutely and completely at lack of ideas almost. I cannot find a track. I've driven around and around and around, and I do not know where the big cats are gone. I really hate to admit that. But from what Scotty told me, Queen Karula sounded like she caught a diker yesterday in this drainage line. So we're just going to go up, and maybe we might find a different access point in there from where Scott did. But if she is in the headwaters of this river system, it is going to be impossible to get into. What we're also going to be looking for if there are any hyenas laying about, because if she's hoisted that kill.
Okay. Can you hear me? What do you guys?
So while we try to sneak into this river system, James has gotten that.
Well, we were just turning round. We were looking at the mantis, and the mystic boer just pointed behind us, and there the buffalo were coming across the dry expanse of this dam. And I suspect what they were doing was just grazing in amongst the sort of, I don't want to say grassland because there aren't any, but sort of woodlands off to the north of the camp where there is still a bit of grazing. Now they'll come back for their normal daily ritual, have a drink of the befouled water, then they'll probably lie in it and chew their cud. They're very rhythmical in their methods, are the buffalo. They like to do things, well, you know, they're like old people, if you like. They have a certain way of doing things during the day, and these buffalo, I don't think, are any different. They are hiding behind. They're jumping into the pond with Peter. And I'm just going to look carefully scanning the bushes for the leopardine face of Karula, because she does like to hide around here. Keep an eye on things, but I don't see her at the moment. Oh, there's another buffalo coming, Brian. So we'll quickly pop across to that buffalo, and while we're doing that, let's go back to Brent, find out what he's doing. I think we'll sit here for a few minutes longer.
What we're doing is we're checking every tree that we can actually see from this area. See if possibly the queen hasn't dragged her carcass into a more accessible spot for us. Getting towards the end of where we're going to be able to traverse this river system. It's a really beautiful little system. Wonderful big trees, some birches, acacias, leadwoods, jackalberries. Hi, Trudy. Trudy says, Brent, I know you've told us before, but do hyenas make their own kills or do they only scavenge? Well, Trudy, it all depends. If they are able to scavenge and not make a kill and steal it with very little effort, they will definitely take that as first prize. But in a lot of circumstances, hyenas do a lot of their own hunting, and they're very good at it. And in quite a few areas, they actually have a better success rate than lion or leopard. Remember, we're going to get stuck.
It's a bit of a sitting point.
I sort of knew we were going to have a position there. Angle was incorrect. Need to go further straight. We just don't want to have all four tires off the ground. Nope, that was a leopard-like termite mound. There we go. Got the angle right that time. Come on. We're looking for very specific species of tree climbing duiker at the moment. And I think, alas, this is where it ends for us. Maybe I'll come have a look on bushwalk this afternoon. We can walk through here. That's the awesome thing about bushwalk. We're able to get places that a car can't. Now for 200-point turn. Let's see a better option.
Now what time look? How's one of the it was a good afternoon. Thinking dry afternoon.
There we go. Penny Pine is wondering whether I have arthritis in my wrists, and is that why I wear the copper bracelets? No, hopefully I shouldn't have arthritis at the ripe old age of 33 years old, or 32. They are reminders of different places I've been, and they're collectors. I've collected them from different spots I've traveled. I've got a few more that I'm just not wearing because it make a bit too much noise when I'm walking in the bush. They jingle jangle together. Where has the queen bee gone? Definitely is worth coming to have a look on foot on the sunset safari. Maybe starting from the top and walking through. See if there an easier escape route than the way we came. I think there is. Voila! So, guys, remember we are live, and the most incredible thing is you are able to ask us questions about anything you're wondering about the bush or about what we're seeing, which is not much at this very moment in time. Hopefully we will rectify that shortly. But you can send your questions via two formats. You can pop me an email on questions@WildEarth.tv, or you can use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Quite a few sets of hyena tracks. I think VM, after coming back from leave, has chased all the big cats away. So we're seeing plenty till he arrived. Well, let's go see if we can find some bear-like creatures. This is really a conundrum. I'm absolutely no, not a lion track, not a cheetah track, not a leopard track. All the tracks that we've seen are really old and not worth following. Maybe they are all cuddling lions, at least in the bottom of a thicket somewhere. The monkey man, sometimes known as a joey in Australia. I said, is it true when a cheetah pops its tail up in the air, sort of waves it about, it's indicating to the other animals that it's not actually hunting? Joey, that is a leopard, not a cheetah, that does that. A leopard will do that when they have been spotted, their parlor already snorting, or they will also often do it when they are being approached by birds and being mobbed by testiculars going.
Okay.
As we are still on the prowl is still prowling for questions, and all not prowling for questions, prowling for answers. On the prowl, would like to know, why do baby cheetahs look grey when they are young? Well, on the prowl, it's actually sort of almost silver if you talk about it, if you look at it carefully, and it's so they camouflage in with long grass easily. They sort of match the dry grass that they might be hiding up in. So it's a form of camouflage that is to aid them in surviving and not being spotted by other predators such as lion, leopard and hyena.
Touching my microphone.
Well, it's falling off, Ian. I'm trying to make sure it stays. The tape solution was not the answer, I think. So we just mentioned hyenas. I think it's time to pop in to the hyena den, see what's happening there. Aha! Dr. Debbie was wondering who the oldest or youngest, member of the Wild Earth crew. So the crew on the ground, I think, if we start at the top from oldest to youngest, will be Stefan Winterboer. Oh no, Eugene, ground crew. Eugene, Steph, then Jemps, then, oh, heaven forbid, me. After me, it's Scott. After Scott, do you know, Billy?
Scott and all the cameramen.
Oh, Scott and all the cameramen, all the same age, except for Dave. Oh no, Alex. Alex is a year older than me. Oh, we got a quick click, and we'll be back with who's the youngest member of the Wild Earth crew.
Now that's the same elephant, everybody, that we were just viewing earlier on in the thick bush. He's definitely seen us, he's watched us, but he's a good safe distance away, and we're not far from home. We could probably escape from him were he to try and do the same kind of investigation that he did of us the other day. Brian, have you still got a view there? We'll probably get a decent view from the edge here. Oh, he's pulling down some tree. There he is. We can move a little bit closer here, because now of course we've got some space. We've also got some openness, so we can see exactly what he's going to do. And I can smell him. You smell that? You can smell the must on him. This is a good distance to be viewing a must bull elephant from. Now, while we're looking at him, I don't know how many of you were keeping an eye on the Djuma Dam cam, but Steph and Brian and I nonchalantly walked across the dam wall, sort of thinking the buffalo would just stay where they were. But they formed a sort of phalanx, and as Steph says, he said it takes one brave buffalo, and they kind of formed a sort of fighting line, and then they came forward towards us. And at some distance, I mean, we were never closer than maybe 100 meters from them. And they just got it in their minds that we were up to no good, and every time we went behind a bush, which was unavoidable, we tried to stay out in the open so they'd come a little bit forward, because of course that's exactly what a predator would do. It would go behind a bush and then sort of try and sneak up again. And so as long as we were in the open, the buffalo just stood dead still and watched us. As soon as we went behind a termite mound or a bush by mistake, they came forward a bit. So it was a very interesting experience. I don't think we were in any danger at any stage. We would have been if we just stayed around there, but we made it very clear that we were leaving. And so they didn't seem to worry too much, and they've wandered off down twin dams. Now, you can see that this elephant is dripping. And that, like I said earlier, is called green penis syndrome, and that smell that we can get here, which is a kind of, let me try and describe it to you. I mean, it smells a little bit like urine, but it is very, it's like a sweet, musty smell. Hey, Brian, how else would you describe it? It's quite sweet, very pungent, and you can even see that it's green, apparently. I can't see on Brian's screen because it's gone through a thorn bush. All 7. Marvellous. Let's just go around this way a little bit, Brian. We can probably get another view of his magnificent set of ivory. So we're probably standing a good 150 to 200 meters from that elephant. Maybe, about 150 meters. That's about 500 feet. And there you can sort of see his ivory there. He will be aware of us because we're standing in the open, but he doesn't seem to be too keen on trying to get around the wind again as he was earlier. Of course, when we last saw him, we were in thick bush. Now that will make him feel slightly threatened because he won't be able to see exactly where and what we're doing. Now, much like with the buffalo, because we're out in the open, he's not particularly concerned about us. Elephant bulls in must, people will tell you again, are aggressive, and it's a bit like the word dangerous for me. I don't like to use the term aggressive. Of course, some animals can become aggressive. Very few are inherently aggressive, with perhaps the exception of a muster bull. He will tend to look for a fight sometimes, as opposed to try and avoid a fight at all costs, which is what most of the animals do out here. And it's just because there's testosterone coursing through his body right now. And testosterone, as we all know, creates aggression. Excuse me, a bit of a frog in my throat. You can see his ivory sticking out there behind the tree. Wonderful shot there. I'm glad we got to spend a bit of time with this fellow, I must say. We got a very small view of him earlier on. You see what he's eating, Brian? Gee whiz. Hello, Freedom Believer. You're on YouTube and you want to know whether we do anything with the ivory if we find it in the bush. Freedom Believer, normally if an elephant dies, we will call in the authorities. They will take the ivory and it becomes part of a stockpile. So that's what would happen. If we found ivory randomly in the bush, sometimes we just leave it exactly where it was. Otherwise you can collect it and hand it over to the owners of the authorities of the land, and they can then collect it, make it part of the stockpile. For me, there's something inherently slightly distasteful about keeping a stockpile of ivory, because of course I think it's people hedging their bets that one day they might actually be able to sell it off at a great cost, whereas I think ivory, if it's found, should just simply be burned. What a wonderful view. Brian, let's do just a little sneak around this tree and then we'll head back sort of towards home. While we reposition here, let's go across to Brent, find out what he's doing. I'm just going to try and get one more view here because he is picking branches out of the tree. Watch here, watch here, watch here. He would have heard that. That's a silver cluster leaf taking a horrible beating there. That is very cool. Okay, let's go across to Brent, see what he's got to tell you. We'll probably spend the next few minutes right here.
So it seems all the predators on Djuma know something I don't, because there's not a hyena at the hyena den even. So one of those mornings, I'm afraid, and I am absolutely complexed, or bemused at where these creatures have disappeared to. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more success on the sunset safari. But we're going to start moving out since there are no hyenas here. And we're discussing for Dr. Debbie the age of the Wild Earth crew. So I think, it starts up Eugene. This is the ground crew. Eugene, and then Steph, then James, then Alex, then me. Then I think Scott, Brian, Andrew, VM, Jandre are all around the same age. And turning 30 this year. You guys are catching up now, VFB. And then I think Nicola is 26. Yeah, Nicola, Nix, Jamie, Kirsty are all about the same age, and Louise and Jerry, I think, is the next down. And then David, who's just joined us, is a proper puppy at 24. And then at the bottom, of the food chain, the lowest of the low, the baby of the babies, who happens to be with us today on the back of Rusty, and VM is preparing to embarrass her immensely. She is already blushing and hiding. We have, at the award-winning 21 years old, Leanne. Smile, Leanne. Oh, look at the blush coming through. And also, one of the newest members, Dave and Leanne, have recently joined us. Leanne's cheeks are still red. Shame. Should we put her on camera one more time? Nah, shame. We'll leave her be for now. So, Vim, where are the lions? Where did you chase them to? Well, we can't find any predatory mammals. We can find you a predatory bird. Here we go. And the tightrope walker in search of carcasses. It looks like a juvenile. It is, it doesn't look like it is a juvenile batelier. So, it's not often, I have to admit, defeat to the big cats. So I'm a little bit embarrassed this morning. I apologize. We couldn't find any. I shall definitely try rectify that on the sunset safari. But thanks for having fun with us and bumbling around the bush. It's been a great morning. Although, as I said, I still am very confused about where the lions might be. But let's go to James for the last bit of the show and spend some time with that magnificent elephant bull while I scratch my head in complete wonder to where the big cats have gone.
Sound. Now I've got full sound. Brian?
I've got power. Yeah, do you have power?
I've got power. Not sure what happened there. Right, everyone. Great Panic Stations. From this close to it. We're not actually that close to him. It's called a compressed shot, so it looks like actually I'm a good 150. Now, I was saying one of the great pleasures of living out here for me is the kind of peaceful atmosphere that you can derive from just sitting, just being. And when there happens to be an animal like this sitting so close to you, just getting on with his life as we are getting on with our lives, that feeling and sense of peace is just that much amplified. So I can hear a couple of birds calling, some crested barbets, the wind blowing, I nearly said through my hair, over my face anymore. It's just a wonderful way to spend a bit of time absorbing the peace of the earth and the wilderness. Thank you everybody for all of your questions and comments throughout our walk today. I had a great time. I hope you did too. Big thanks to Brent, of course, and he's with VM. Thank you, Brian, for your efforts. I hope your thighs recover. And to the Mystic Boer, Stefan, of course, and a big thanks to the final control of Nikki and Kirsty. We will see you later on today at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Stay safe and happy wherever you are. Bye-bye.